Sean Brace says you cannot win without beef up front. Welcome back, everyone, to the Beef Up Front podcast. Your host, Ryan Coyle, joined alongside by my co host each and every week here, Joseph Kmetz, for our weekly college football preview show. Joe, already week 3, our 4th episode already. As we say, once it gets here, it goes and it goes quick because all you're looking forward to the rest of the week is the next time Saturday comes around and the games are back. But we got football again. Not the sexiest slate this week. Kind of mirrors last week in terms of not great games, but last Saturday was awesome. Just watched football wall to wall, starting at 12, and I think ended around 2 o'clock probably during that Oregon versus Boise State game. But some important games nonetheless this week, of course, as always. But welcome back, Joseph, and how are we?
Well, I'm feeling great. Like you said, another great week of college football. And, there might not be like your real marquee games this week, but like you were kind of saying, there's a lot of solid games. We have 5 pretty good games. We have 3 big time rivalry games that didn't even make the cut for our 5 games of the week this week, which kind of tells you this is a pretty deep week.
Mm-hmm.
The night slate, not so much. When Indiana at UCLA is your NBC primetime, game of the week. That's not the best, sign for your night slate. But a lot of good games this week. Real, this is where you really start to get to learn what you need to know about these teams. Week 3, by now, you hope, your offenses and defenses have settled into what you want to do. This is going to be a big week, particularly for the first, not the first 2 games, excuse me. We're going to talk about those games a little bit later. I was on the second page. That's on me. But real big week this week. I'm looking forward to getting Saturday.
Yeah, and as you said, when I was going through the schedule to narrow down our game to our top 5, left off Pitt, West Virginia, which could have thrown on there, Washington State, and Oregon State. And that's kind of your product of realignment because I feel like most years those games are at the end of the season, at least the Pac-12 games or the former Pac-12 games. Those were rivalry games that the past few years had a lot of meeting as well, and we're definitely making our schedule because when we get towards the back half of the year, we start to increase to the more games that are important. But yeah, it's weird kind of seeing these games this early in the season, but still, I think there's some nice games, and I think you said it best, Joe, where we're going to learn a lot about teams this weekend. Like, is Wisconsin going to be any good this year? Can they hold their own against Alabama? South Carolina, real, fraudulent? What are they? Boston College finding their way into the top 25. Like, there's some teams that when you looked at the schedule probably at the beginning of the season, you didn't expect to be on this week's list of games. But that's how it goes sometime, and that's the beauty of the sport. But to wrap up week 2 real quick, Joe, straight up, total record last week, 14-6, my best week of the season. 5-1 straight up, 5-1 against the spread, 3-3 on my total, 3-3 on the totals, 1-0 on my lock of the week, which was that Nebraska and Tennessee moneyline parlay, and then 0-1 on my dog of App State against Clemson, and that was an absolute rout by Clemson in that one. I was surprised. You went 12-8, 5-1 straight up, 3-3 against the spread, 3-3 total, 0-1 your lock, which was Kentucky. That game was puzzling. I'm sure we'll get into that during the South Carolina LSU game, and then 1-0 on your dog. Good outright winner there by you with Syracuse. But before we close the door on week 2, move to week 3, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your Fighting Irish. If you want to have a little 1-minute soapbox on what you're expecting from them going forward and how upset you are after that loss.
Riley Leonard's really bad. Like, he's not good. That was really tough to watch. It was one of those games, I won't even lie. I love Notre Dame, but when I was out, of course, like the worst place you want to be when there's football on. I was at my great aunt's 80th birthday party at her house with they have one little TV, and I was like watching the game on my phone. So it was kind of in and out. I saw the first drive. We looked great, 7-0. I'm like, okay, whatever. I get home, all of a sudden I see, we're in a dogfight. We lose the game. This was a Notre Dame team, like the ultimate letdown team. We've had games like this in the past. Like 10 years ago, we lost to South Florida at home. Back in 2009, 2010, we lost to UConn. A couple of years ago, Marcus Freeman's first year, we lose to Marshall at home. When week 1 we lose to Ohio State, it's okay. You come back, bounce back. get right. We lose to Marshall. It's just becoming far too common with Notre Dame. It's like they think we're national champions after we won at A&M. Marcus Freeman has a lot to answer. I think, there were a lot of Notre Dame fans calling for him to be fired. I don't know if I'd go that far yet, but I got to see how the rest of the season goes. I mean, if Riley Leonard is going to be your option going forward, I mean, there's going to be some real problems. Notre Dame fans are falling in love with him because, he's talking about how he does Bible study every Thursday. But, I mean, I think we got to spend more time in the film room, kid, because there were some plays. It was like I would call up Luke right now, who hasn't played quarterback since he was in high school, and I would trust him to do the same job Riley Leonard did. Like, it was real ugly, real bad. Shout out Northern Illinois. They're a tough team. They deserve to win that football game. And they have a great opportunity. Thank God for them. They're on a bye this week, by the way, because if not, this would be the ultimate. You want to talk about like overhyped spot. I saw their head coach. I haven't listened to it yet, but he was on Pardon My Take. He was doing a lot of Barstool stuff this week. I mean, I love it. Good for him. They have still a big test, too. They play at NC State in a couple of weeks. They win that game. You're talking about a team that might be a lock for the G5 bid to the playoff all of a sudden. So shout out the Huskies. Still have do I have it down here? I don't think I have the flag down here. I don't. It's upstairs.
Oh.
But I have my Kansas flag and my my FAMU flag over here in the box. I still have to hang up. But shout out the Huskies. Great week. Enjoy the bye week. Party your faces off. You deserve it. And I hope they don't blow it going forward. I hope they don't waste this win and they go like 7-5. I hope they can maybe get to 10 wins and be in the conversation come Selection Sunday.
Yeah, and you made a point too about some Notre Dame fans already calling for Marcus Freeman's job. I think one of the stats I saw this week, this is obviously his third season at Notre Dame, 3 games in now, or going into his third game. He has 9 losses. Brian Kelly had 9 losses after his first 5 seasons total, and they ran Brian Kelly out of town as well. So kind of just goes to show you the grass isn't always greener on the other side. But we'll close the door on Notre Dame. I don't know how much more we'll be talking about them this season. I think we will if Purdue finds a way to beat them this week. But that's not on our list of games of the week. We start on Friday night. 2 Big 12 teams, Joe, but not a conference matchup. That is one thing that I feel like is important to note in this game. Number 20, Arizona, traveling to number 14, Kansas State. 8 o'clock kick on Fox. Kansas State, a 7.5-point favorite. Over-under is 58.5. As we said, not a conference game, despite it being conference teams. This was a non-conference matchup that was agreed upon a few years ago. Both teams weren't able to get out of it and find new opponents when they went to the realignment. So this will be a non-conference game. Doesn't count towards the conference record, but still 2 teams I think have aspirations to be in the playoff this year. So still matters a lot. Big spot. What do you like in this game?
I like Kansas State in this game. I have them winning 38-21. So we're going to go Kansas State minus 7.5. We're going to go over 58.5 by the hook there. I'll probably stay away from the over betting the game on Friday, but I love Kansas State in this spot. It's just real concerning when you're struggling with New Mexico. You gave up, I think, like 30-something points to a team that lost to an FCS school, and then you're down at halftime against an FCS school, and you have to come back and beat them. And you're going on a road to a Kansas State team in a big primetime spot. It's going to be rocking there. They already survived a tough early season road test against Tulane. Tulane's not a slouch team. Like, Tulane's only 13.5-point dogs at Oklahoma this week. So Tulane, and, take what you want about the spreads, but Vegas does know what they're doing in terms of, power rating these teams and whatnot. So I think Kansas State is the much better team here. I'm going to take them to cover the 7.5. 17 points might be a bit much. I know I kind of have this game as a blowout, but I just think Avery Johnson's a better quarterback. Kansas State's a better coach team. And I think Arizona is still kind of riding that ranking from last season. But when you lose your coach, even if you retain a lot of players, it's tough to keep that magic going. So I am going to go with Kansas State here in a fairly easy win.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. It's I think they should have like one. I know they're going forward. There's some games on Fridays, but they should have one like really good matchup each and every Friday. This is a awesome kind of standalone game on Friday. I mean, you also got Kansas UNLV, which should be a fun one, but this is kind of the all eyes on this matchup. It's a fun one. 2 kind of spunky teams that I think we're going to be seeing a lot of this year. To be honest, I've been disappointed with Kansas State and Avery Johnson to start. He hasn't really hit the ground running like I expected. He was kind of my number 2 behind Jackson Dart going into the year for the Heisman. Season's still young and plenty of ball left to play. Still a guy that's he's only started 4 games, I believe, now at the college level. So chance to hit the ground running still, but national spotlight on him. He could explode in this game against an Arizona defense that I don't think's that strong. He gave up 39 points to New Mexico. I think he could certainly exploit them this week. So watching that K-State Tulane game, though, the Wildcats offense was boring to watch. A lot of horizontal stuff. I think they need more vertical action and more kind of quarterback-centric runs for Avery Johnson to use his wheels. And I came on the show last week by myself saying Arizona must-watch TV. After that 61-point performance against New Mexico, McMillan and his 10 catches, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then they go and lay the dud against Northern Arizona, 22-10. So we'll see if that was kind of just they were playing a vanilla, what to expect out of Arizona. But I do think it's a fun game, and I had been talking myself into Arizona because I thought this was a big number. Did a little bit more research on it. Chris Kleiman, since taking over at K-State, has been awesome as a favorite. Since he got named the K-State head coach in 2019, he's 17-8 against the spread as a home favorite, 23-12-2 against the spread as just a favorite in general. And then the second best team in the country since 2019 against the spread at 39-23-2. Kleiman's been an against the spread wagon. I'm going to back the data there on a game that I think it's kind of a coin flip which way it goes. I'm going to go with the data and the home team. And think Arizona's defense isn't that strong. Kansas State is going to be able to put up some points on them in this one, and Avery Johnson has his best game to date. I'll go K-State 35, Arizona 24 there. Before we move on to game number 2, we got McClay checking in the comments. Iowa State versus Arkansas State. 2 of McClay's teams there. I know he's a Red Bulls fan as well, but awesome game last week in the Cyhawk game. Any thoughts on that matchup, Joe?
I have both.
I don't even think that is a matchup. I think Michigan's playing Arkansas State this week.
They absolutely are. I'm glad you said that, Cole, because I'm like, am I? I'm just very confused. But I have both their win totals to go over.
There you
go. Shout out the Red Bulls. Red Bulls are my online dynasty team in NCAA football. Jaquez Cross, he's the man. I love him. He is so good. He's my running back. I think I have like 2,000 yards rushing with him. He kicks ass. Besides that, I couldn't tell you a lot. They have waterfalls that go off when they score a touchdown. That's pretty cool. Yeah. But no, my Red Bulls don't know a lot about it, but big win for Iowa State. That's a game, like I kind of said last week, we were talking about it. That's just a game that Iowa State loves to lose for some reason, even though they're the better team. And they proved that they were the better team. They came out a little slow, but that's a win that you can build on going forward. And, the Big 12, I still feel like it's going to be like the team that wins a conference is going to have 2-3 losses. That's a big non-conference win you can hang your hat on for Iowa State when you're trying to make a case if, they weren't to win the conference for maybe a potential at-large bid for the playoff. So
not only is that not a matchup this week, but also Iowa State is on the bye. So thanks, Nick. Thanks, Nick, for interrupting the programming. We go to Saturday now. Big noon kickoff out to Wisconsin, Camp Randall. Number 4, Alabama, traveling to the Badgers. 12 o'clock kick on Fox. Bama, 16-point favorite, over under 51.5. Any thoughts on this matchup, Joe?
I was kind of talking about it earlier. You hope that your team kind of figures out its offense by this point. Wisconsin is still figuring that out. South Dakota is a very good FCS team. I'm not saying, any shout out to the Coyotes, but and they played Western Michigan, right, week 1 as well.
Yep.
It's just tough when you're not I know Notre Dame just lost Northern Illinois, but Wisconsin should be handily beating those teams. And, maybe Coach Fick is saving stuff for this game, but I'm going to go Bama 31, Wisconsin 17. At the end of the day, I'm going to take Milroe. It's a guy I can trust. I'll take Wisconsin to cover because 16 is a lot. Bama going on the road here. The atmosphere there is going to be nuts. That's kind of why I'm thinking it'll be a close game, at least within the spread. I'm going to take the under in this game of 51.5. I think Wisconsin obviously is better than USF. Bama certainly took their sweet time to get going in that game. They put up 28 points in the third. So, if you just looked at the scoreboard, you're like, oh, okay, Bama didn't really struggle. that was a game. I was at the bar watching that fourth quarter. Early on, it was not looking good. South Florida looked like they have a real shot. If Bama takes their time again, this is a Big Ten team, and you're at their place. I can kind of see, like you can kind of visualize fourth quarter starting, jump around comes on, flashes to Gus Johnson in the booth jumping around. Bama maybe's up 3, or like it's within it's like a 1-score game. Bama could be in trouble, but I just think at the end of the day they're a better team. I trust Milroe way more than Van Dyke at the quarterback position, so give me Bama.
Yeah, this is a spot, Joe, that I had kind of highlighted as a potential spot all offseason for Wisconsin to pull off an upset. And I was also overvaluing Wisconsin a little bit. They haven't shown me anything through 2 weeks. I texted you last week. I think they might just not be a good football team. I think the kind of style of play that Fickle's trying to bring there isn't really working out, and they should have kind of just stuck to the basics of what they were good at, and that was going 10-2, winning with beef up front and running the ball 50 times a game. They try to get fancy, and I think it's kind of biting them in the ass right now. But big noon kickoff, biggest game of the Fickle era thus far. I just don't think the Wisconsin team has any juice. Maybe they could prove me wrong in this atmosphere, in this big spot, but they struggled to put away Western Michigan, as you touched on, and South Dakota. And they're trying to do this, as I was talking about. They go away from what they were good at. They're trying to bring the spread, air raid type offense. And if you do that against Bama, and you have a few 3-and-outs, Jalen Milroe and company can run them off the field by the end of the first quarter. I truly think that. You were talking about how Bama had the test against USF, which they did. That was certainly a dogfight from a stingy USF team that is probably going to be a 9 to 8 win team or something in that ballpark. But I think Alabama, what impressed me the most in getting that win, showed off their explosive play ability at the end of the game. They scored 3 touchdowns over the last 5 minutes and 50 seconds. If Wisconsin does this air raid spread bullshit, goes out there, has 2 3-and-outs to start the game, Bama could go down and make this, a 2-touchdown game in a blink of an eye. It could be 14-0 by the point that there's 10 minutes left in the first. And that's the thing that concerns me most about Wisconsin this one. I would have to think that they play it a little bit smarter and do it a little bit different in this matchup, but I just think head and shoulders this Alabama team is better. They're more athletic, and I think that's going to be a real test as well for Wisconsin. Maybe Wisconsin comes to play early, makes it kind of interesting in the first quarter, but I think Bama pulls away in this one, wins by 3 scores. I'm going to go Alabama 38, Wisconsin 17, so Bama minus 16, and the over of 51.5 hitting there. All right, college game day game now. I don't think anyone had this on their bingo card a few weeks ago, let alone even just walking into last week. I think game day was kind of waiting to see, like, all right, what's a new maybe spot we're able to go to? And South Carolina pulls off a big upset at Kentucky last week. And they get the privilege of hosting college game day this week. Number 16 LSU traveling down to Columbia to play the Gamecocks. Noon kick on ABC. LSU 7-point favorite. Over under is 50.5. Joe, will you be getting cocky this weekend?
I'm going with LSU. I'm going LSU 24, South Carolina 21. This is my puke fest of the day. I think this is going to be a low-scoring, ugly game. Love the under in this game. I'm at 50.5. I'm going to take the Gamecocks +7. The Cocks are kind of playing with house money right now. They're in sole possession of first place in the SEC. Shout out, they're the only 1-0 team in the SEC. Shout out to the Gamecocks. But after pulling off the upset, and I did put upset in parentheses because I know they were, 9.5, 10.5, it was between 8.5 and 10.5 all week spread wise. Beating Kentucky in the first, ABC 3:30 spot for the SEC. But LSU is kind of, I'm calling this a must win for LSU. I know that kind of sounds crazy, but if they start out 1-2, it's going to be real hard to make the playoffs with the schedule they have. Hold on, I just had their schedule pulled up here. But Brian Kelly already is on the hot seat. It feels like every game LSU fans, they don't really like Brian Kelly. He's been starting out losing a lot. Like, they still have, Ole Miss, Bama. They have Oklahoma all at home, so that is good. But at A&M isn't easy. At Florida, even though Florida isn't good, that's a rivalry game. A couple of years ago when LSU was the better team, that was the shoe game. LSU ended up losing that game to Florida. Or did LSU win that game?
LSU won that game.
LSU won that game, excuse me. Okay, flipping around.
Yeah.
But regardless, still a tough place to play. LSU could really use this win because, like I said, if you start out 1-2, LSU is a place that expects national titles. Even though in our lifetime they've only won 3, they expect to be right on the same level as Bama, on the same level as Georgia. And if you start out 1-2 losing a game at South Carolina, when you still have, some real high-powered SEC teams to play later in the year, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I'm going to go with LSU just off of the sheer fact that they need this game. I wouldn't be shocked if South Carolina wins the game, but I think LSU is going to squeak by. But I still love the Gamecocks plus the 7 here because Brian Kelly really can't afford another loss.
That makes me feel good because I was a fucking bozo play by you last week on the Gamecocks. Gives me some confidence, and then these Gamecocks are going to pull this upset off. I'm going upset, Joe. Let's get crazy here. 20-17, South Carolina over LSU. So give me South Carolina plus 7, under 50.5. As I said at the beginning, nobody thought this would be the game day game, but here we go. LSU had a tough battle with Nichols College. Shout out to them last week. 23-21 with 14 minutes left in the third quarter. Basically, Nichols scored on like the first play from scrimmage, I think it was, to start the second half. But then LSU began to separate, as they should in that game. But still not a very dominating, convincing win. And South Carolina really dominated Kentucky from start to finish. It was a game that I didn't live bet in favor of Kentucky, but there was a few spots I was like, no way South Carolina is going to be able to keep this defense up the whole day. And they did. It was a very impressive kind of eye-opening performance. Defense might be legit down there. I mean, they held Kentucky to 44 total yards passing on the road as a 10-point underdog. That's an eye-popping performance no matter who it's against. I don't care if whatever SEC opponent you're playing. You're a 10-point underdog on the road and you have that dominant of a defensive performance. Hat tip to you for sure. The offense, though, isn't very dynamic right now for South Carolina. I think that's where you might have been kind of more, why you were betting against them last week, why a lot of people – it seemed like Kentucky was a heavy public play. A lot of people loved them last week. And it's because that offense didn't really look good against Old Dominion. They didn't look much better against Kentucky. Only threw for 173 yards, ran for 79, but still found a way to win as a 10-point road dog. Impressive stuff. In that scenario, you got to pick 6, get some special teams plays. I just don't think LSU is very confident right now. I think that loss to USC really kind of took a hit to the family jewels, and it was kind of like, all right, here we go again from here. What's this season going to be? I think South Carolina has momentum. They have the nobody expected us to be here. Look at us now type of attitude, type of mentality. It has game day in town. That's one of the more underrated atmospheres in all of college football down there in Columbia as well. Let's get nuts. Go with the upset here. Low score and ugly game, but South Carolina is on fire this week. I'm going with the Gamecocks to win it outright. 20-17, so South Carolina plus 7 and under 50.5 as we said. Another game that wasn't on the bingo card of this will be a top 5 matchup of the week, but here we are, and it's a ranked matchup to better it. Number 24, Boston College at number 6, Mizzou. 12:45 kick on the SEC network. Weird kickoff time. Mizzou minus 16 over under 54.5.
The only ranked game of the day, because I know you have the Arizona Kansas State game Friday, but this should have been the game day game. I feel like game day has never gone to Missouri before. It's the only top 25 game is Saturday. Would have been real cool to see. I'm not really complaining about the South Carolina pick, however. But I'm going to go with Missouri 38, Boston College 21. I think Missouri's going to cover the spread. I already locked that in earlier in the week. I'm going to go over 54.5 as well. A play I'm going to stay away from. I just feel like Missouri's going to score a lot. BC will be able to keep up with them in terms of the number. Most important game of the day. This has just been an awesome story to start off for BC. Massive win on Labor Day against Florida State. The whole country's watching that game. If they can somehow pull this off, in terms of the playoff, in terms of the ACC as well, they're going to be in a really, really good spot because the ACC, Coyle, we've been talking about it, hasn't looked great at all besides Miami. Miami kind of looks like the clear-cut favorite right now. But Boston College, if you win this game, you host Louisville, who's currently 19th in the country. You don't play Miami this season in the regular season. You have Syracuse coming to you. Syracuse looks like a decent team. UNC Pitt coming to you. SMU doesn't look good. You're on the road there. And, Virginia and Virginia Tech haven't looked great. So it's a really winnable ACC schedule. But if you win this game and kind of put it in your back pocket, that is going to carry a lot of weight going forward. Bill O'Brien really gives his team an identity. Castellanos is awesome. They run the fuck out of the football. They're a really fun, kind of like old school team to watch. That being said, though, I just think Mizzou's going to win this game handily. Boston College hasn't played a team offensively like this thus far. Brady Cook is way better than DJU, and I mean, at the end of the day, the Eagles haven't had to play a receiver like Luther Burden yet. So I am going to go with Missouri. I know I just talked up Boston College for like 3 minutes, just kind of flip it on them, but I go Missouri pretty handily here. Give me the Tigers at home big.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple here. I think it's a low-scoring game. I think it's two pretty strong defenses. BC, their strength, you touched on it, and I think they're going to be a player as well, not necessarily for a ACC title game berth, but to win like 8 games, I think that would be a really successful first year under O'Brien. But the strength of this Boston College team is the running game and trying to keep Mizzou's explosive offense off the field. That's why I really like the under in this one. I think they just try to run. I'm going to do everything they can to keep Missouri off the field. The Tigers have only played Murray State and Buffalo thus far, but still 2 shutouts to start the year, only allowing 0 points through 8 quarters. I mean, that's very impressive stuff right there, no matter who the opponent you're playing is and no matter what level of football. If that's a high school game, if that's a middle school game, to keep teams out of the end zone or without a field goal or even a safety through 8 quarters, that's impressive stuff. So shout out to Missouri and the defense, which was looked at coming into the year as kind of the Achilles heel of this team. I just think that they get it done at home, though. I think BC is able to put up the first points of the season on the Tigers. I think the running game is going to give teams fits all year because they do have the dual threat ability with the quarterback. But I'm with you. I think Mizzou finds a way to get it done, and I'll take them to cover 2 at home in a low-scoring game. One of my plays of the week, though, is the under 54.5 in this one. We'll go Mizzou 30, BC 13, so Mizzou minus 16 and under 54.5. Real early slate for us this week, Joe. Our next 2 games, a 3:30 kickoff and then a 4 o'clock kickoff, and we don't have any in the nightcap. So get your bets in early for the beef up front, boys, this week. Texas A&M traveling down to the Swamp, 3:30 kick on ABC. A&M somehow a 4.5-point favorite on the road here. I don't know what they've shown to deserve that yet, but you can also say it the same about Florida. What if they deserve to be a favorite in this spot? Over under 49.5, Joe. Do you think Billy Napier lives to see another day and gets a win in this game?
I do think they get the win here, 21-20. I actually lied. I think this is going to be the puke fest of the day. This is going to be a low-scoring game, but it won't necessarily be because of the defenses. It might just be because both offenses are that bad. But this game more so is going to kind of show me what kind of team A&M is. Because if Florida does win this game, and all of a sudden you're A&M, A&M fans are thinking, well, Notre Dame is a tough team, even with the loss to NIU. And, Notre Dame fans like myself were like, well, we still showed that we can win on the road to A&M. But if A&M goes out and they're 1-2, all of a sudden that game at the beginning of the season means nothing at all. And I just don't trust A&M offensively to really go far. And I think going to the Swamp, a team that is in desperate need of a big-time win, because, it's been talked about ad nauseum for like 2 years now. Because I feel like even last season we were talking about Florida's schedule for this year. That schedule's impossible. Florida really needs a win, and if not, Coyle, I agree with what you were kind of saying. If Florida loses this game, I think Napier's done. They just cut their losses, and you might see a 2-10 Florida Gator team at the end of the year.
Yeah, one thing I have heard of a reason that he might keep the job at least through the season, even if they're not playing well, it's either an interim president or interim AD. I want to say it's an interim president. So they don't really want to give this AD another chance to hire a new football coach, basically, because I think that would be his 3rd football coach that he's hired or potentially his 4th. So things could get ugly down there in Gainesville one way or another. But I've been saying this. I've been on record with this all week. If Billy Napier has any chance to build something this year, he needs this game. And for Notre Dame to go to A&M and win that and then lose to NIU last week, I mean, really, what does that have to say about Texas A&M? This is a golden spot for a brand name win. I think Texas A&M is going to trend to be more of a 6-6 team this year, but still a brand name win and 2 programs that are, I think, in a bit of a rut right now. And the loser falls to 1-2 on the year with their only win being over an FCS opponent. It's kind of your season can go flatline, completely downhill after this, or it could go up and you could build some real momentum. So I think this is a loser leaves town type of game. It sounds weird to say that in a first SEC game of the year for both of these squads, but it's a truth. But my take on this week, Florida and Billy Napier has to start DJ Lagway. They have to, plain and simple. There's no reason whatsoever that Graham Mertz should be starting this game. You have no loyalty to him besides him being your starting quarterback last year and once this year. And it's not like he followed you as a transfer from elsewhere. He's a guy that played and didn't even take you to a bowl game last year. You do not owe him shit. DJ Lagway actually is the highest paid player on this Florida team, according to some NIL rumors that I've heard. Why not start him? 456 yards last week, 4 touchdowns, the 5-star quarterback. And even if you do have a shitty season, but you find a way to like 5-7 and 6-6, but he looks like a star, and administration goes like, all right, you look like you're ready to take off next year with this guy. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you try that? He gives you the best chance to win, I think, each and every Saturday too, in favor of Graham Mertz. So give me DJ Lagway. I think they might split time in the first half. That's been rumored that they're going to share snaps. I don't know why. That's idiotic. That's never worked in the history of college football, NFL football. But I think Billy Napier kind of comes to his senses. He gives DJ Lagway the full amount of snaps in the second half, and the Gators got to win at home. If they lose this game and Graham Mertz is the starting quarterback, I do not think Billy Napier has a job on Monday. That is my take for this week. But I'm going to take the Gators with all that being said. At home, 24-20, Florida plus 4.5, under 49.5. I think I'm going to lock in that under as well on this matchup. All right, that's our big 5 games of the week. As we said, not the sexiest slate, but we got one more to finish it up. We got our group of 5 game of the week. Not that many great options in this one either. But we'll feature Jimmy Towers, regular listener of the program, has recently became an ECU Pirate fan. But I don't think he'll be down at the Boneyard this week. I believe he's in Louisiana. It's a shame. This is probably one of the better games of the year. But got App State going to ECU after the absolute ass kicking that Clemson gave them last week, 35-0 after the first quarter. First quarter, Joe.
Oh, Beef, I know. I had App State. I had them plus 17.
We had 2 great bets. Syracuse was a great one. The Nebraska and Tennessee money line were never a doubt. But then those dogs, the dog of the day for me and the lock of the week for you were complete bozo plays. But let's see if App State has a chance to right the ship this week. App State going to ECU, as we said, 4 o'clock kick on ESPNU. App State still a favorite in this one, minus 2.5, over under 56.5. Can they go into the Boneyard and figure this out, Joe, and get this win?
I have East Carolina winning this game 28-24.
No one goes into the Boneyard.
It's tough to go into the Boneyard and walk out with a victory, Coyle. Don't I know it? But I am going to go with the Pirates here. I'm going to take them to cover the 2.5. Under 56.5, they're going to be getting rowdy at Dowdy this week. I think App State's a much better team. Let me start by saying that. But it's just really tough to bounce back on the road against an in-state. I don't know if these two are rivals, but I know they are in-state. They seem like they've been playing each other a lot more recently. But it's just tough to go on the road in this environment after getting your face smashed in. It's so demoralizing when, App State was kind of being talked about as maybe a sleeper G5 team that could be competing for, a playoff spot. And then you got to go play this game against East Carolina. East Carolina, though, one thing that I was, when I was looking at them a little bit after, I saw you put this in as one of the games of the week, they avoid Memphis and Tulane in the American Athletic Conference. I'm not saying that they're going to, go anywhere.
You love building the playoff path for everyone.
I do. It's fantastic. It's so much fun because this is what I do during college basketball season. Now there's actually, paths and stuff to build. It's interesting to see to me, but that's my autism flaring out. But I am going to go with the Pirates here, 28-24. Like I said, I think App State's a better team. It's just real hard after you're, got humiliated in prime time, in a night game against Clemson, which is, definitely one of those games all the coaches are like, oh, you wanted to go here. They didn't recruit you to go here. Well, there's a reason why they didn't recruit you to go here. You got your faces kicked in. So you got to bounce back against East Carolina on the road. And what's probably going to be a good environment. East Carolina, good party school. They don't get a chance to be, have a lot of fun athletic events because their sports teams just suck. So shout out the Pirates. I think you're going to go and get the 3-0 this week.
So you're saying the Boneyard holds strong this week?
Getting rowdy at Dowdy. Yes, Beef.
I think I heard this stat this week, working to confirm it, but I believe even though East Carolina is 2-0 on the year, they have 9 turnovers this season. I
That's
did see that they're -6 in the turnover differential. So if they cough it up a few times against App State this week, I think that they fall a bit short. But I do think this game, it says a lot about who ECU really is. Be, with App State still being favored in this one after that absolute beatdown, it kind of just goes to show you that the Boneyard might not be buzzing as much as we thought this week. I think App State kind of regroups, and I'm going the opposite way of what you were kind of thinking, where that beatdown, a hit to your manhood, you kind of what the fuck type of moment. But I think that App State's a good enough program, a solid enough program that has a good track record that they're able to right the ship this week. No pun intended, headed to play the Pirates, and find a way to get it done and cover. I think I'm going to bet them against the spread as well. I'll go 31-20 App State. So App State -2.5 and under of 56.5 there to wrap up our games of the week. All right, Joe, to finish it off, our lock of the week. Last week, mine was Nebraska and Tennessee moneyline parlay that came out to -118. Both games never a sweat. Absolute domination from start to finish. Hat tip to the boys for cash in there. My lock of the week this week, I'm going to go with Ole Miss. Lock this one in today. Team total of over 43.5. Obviously, I've hit that number in both games this year against Middle Tennessee and Furman. Not exactly world beaters there. But one guy that I always see his TikTok videos, he was like a former staffer at Ole Miss or at Alabama, some relation to Lane Kiffin. But he said, trust me when I say this, Lane Kiffin will do everything in his power to get Jackson Dart the Heisman Trophy this year. They're going to have the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal, start to finish, take their spreads as a big favor, take their team totals. Those guys are going to be in and they're going to be playing. They go to Wake Forest this week that gave the game away to UVA last week, who's going to be one of the worst teams, or is supposed to be one of the worst teams in the country this year. So I really like Ole Miss to go out there, pour it on Wake Forest. They're -23 too. I think that's certainly a play, but I do think they put pedal to the metal all week, all game, over 43.5, and they hit 50 in this one probably. So give me Ole Miss team total over 43.5 for my lock of the week.
My lock of the week, I'm going to keep it simple. Rivalry game. I always like the dog at home. Oregon State is a 16.5-point underdog to the Oregon Ducks. Oregon has not looked good. I know last week I took them because I just keep thinking they're going to figure it out. And of course, they probably will now that I'm betting against them this week. But I am going to go with Oregon State to cover the 16.5 against Oregon. Oregon State fans already hated Oregon to begin with. But now that Oregon has left them for dead, and the Pac-12 is currently just the Pac-2. I am going with Oregon State here to cover. Maybe if you want to tease it down a little bit, I think this is going to be a real close game. I think Oregon will find a way to win at the end. But, I mean, you're struggling to beat Idaho. You're struggling to beat Boise State. What makes me think that you're going to just dominate the Beavers at home? I am going to go with Oregon State to cover the spread as my lock of the week.
All right. We got RJ checking in as well. Loves Georgia this week. They were very close to being my lock of the week as well. 1.5 unit play for me. I already locked that in -24. I think that's a game that they win 51-14. I could see it being something like that. Absolute blowout. I think Kentucky last week showed us who they were, and I think Georgia absolutely steamrolls them very similarly to what they did last year. And that game was only a 14-point spread. I think Georgia dog walks Kentucky this week. Any comments on that game, Joe?
Yeah, Coyle, I'm with you.
Kentucky dead to you?
They're dead in the water in general. Like that was just such a bad effort on national TV against South Carolina, and now you expect me to kind of like how I was just saying about Oregon, but in kind of different spectrums. Like you expect me to trust you against Georgia? No way. I think Georgia's going to steamroll Kentucky. I don't even think that game's close.
All right, and now time for the dog of the day. I already talked about mine, but I'm going to go Florida, +4.5. For some reason, I don't know why. I'm feeling stupid already for taking it, for trusting Billy Napier. But it reminds me a lot of last year when he had his back against the wall. They had that blowout game against Kentucky, and everyone was like, oh, they're going to get blown out by Tennessee. And they come back and absolutely roll Tennessee. I think this could be a similar spot at home. He's certainly feeling the pressure, and I think DJ Lagway comes to save the day and saves his job. And the Florida Gators get this win outright at home, but I definitely like them plus 4.5. I think Texas A&M is shit. I think they're trash, and I think we're gonna find out a lot more about them on Saturday, and that their season is going to be an absolute failure as well.
Yeah, Coyle. I mean, I love that pick right there. I'm going to go with TCU plus 2.5. I do not trust KJ Jefferson as a quarterback. He's quarterback for UCF. They're going on the road against TCU. They've won 2 games pretty convincingly if you look at the scores. But, I mean, in reality, like KJ Jefferson just hasn't looked great. He runs the football pretty decently, but as a passer, against Sam Houston, he went 12 for 15 for 169. Granted, that might have been all they needed him to do, but I, think it's a different environment when you're going on the road in conference for the first time. This is the primetime game on Fox. I believe it is a 7:30 kickoff. I want to make sure 7:30 on Fox. UCF at TCU. I am going with TCU outright, and I am also taking them to cover the 2.5.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for the college football show for week 3. Any last second comments before we head out, Dad?
Enjoy it because, like you said, Coyle, it's already our 4th show of the year. Going to be having a lot more this year now with the expanded playoff, but I mean, we're already in week 3. Some teams that played week 0 have already played their 4th game. They're going to already be a third of the way done with their season. So enjoy it because before you know it, we'll be sitting here right around Christmas time talking about the playoffs. So great week of football ahead, Coyle. You said it best. A lot of great games. Can't wait to get into it.
All right. Well, that will do it for this week's show. As always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk next week.